That alone, verse number 73. In one substance there are many, and in many things there is one meaning. Reasoning thus, everything becomes inseparably inclusive in knowledge. Not all know this great secret. Commentary. We live in a paradoxical situation of the one and the many. When you become self-conscious, you think of yourself as one surrounded by many others. Whenever you find yourself in a new place, a new situation, or a new environment, the consciousness of the other is very intense. The idea I am different further intensifies the strangeness of the other. You feel like defending yourself, protecting or shielding yourself, veiling yourself. The immediate impulse is to withdraw into a shell and peep out through a little hole, staying hidden as much as possible, while you look for some possibility of establishing a connection or even a friendship with someone in that strange environment. If you see a kind face, a greeting smile, a hand that reaches out to you, it brings a ray of hope, and you can begin to build a bridge to that person. There is nothing more reassuring than the possibility of establishing a newfound friendship. In order to make that bridge, you have to recognize something in the other person with which your own feelings can be identified. Out of the many others, you separate the one entity that looks most favorable. When once you smile back, shake hands and speak, if you find in their words a pleasing tone or a helpful meaning, the strangeness fades and the likeness emerges. When more and more of the strangeness is shed and unity is established, you and that person stand out from the rest as one among many. You begin to speak of we instead of I and you. Let us face this world together. Let us do this. Within that us you have courage, confidence, strength, and ability. When your new friend introduces you to 10 other people from the strange crowd, even though you don't know anything about them yet, you have great confidence and trust in your friend. Her word is enough for you to include them also with us. Here the artha, the meaning you have found in your friend, can be extrapolated, expanded, and projected onto others. This is a case of the many being brought together in the one. Now let's look at a different situation. Imagine you are sitting all by yourself in your own home. There is nothing to fear from outside. So your preoccupation turns inwards. As soon as you look into yourself, you are facing a strange crowd. You are no longer just a single person. The seemingly solid I in you dissipates into many separate elements. Your memories walk around like ghosts, and your desires take central stage, one after the other. You evaluate each in turn, examining the encounters each desire has brought you in your life, to what extent you have nurtured them, and how much of them remain unsatisfied. The frustration each has already brought you, and what further frustrations you anticipate. In this situation, the single you has become many. You are faced with many internal elements, all standing by themselves. Each has its own definite meaning. In a way, it's like a colony of meanings of a heterogeneous nature. But here again, you look for unity within yourself, of how many of those elements have similar aspects which allow them to be lumped together. The problem of the one and the many is lived in entirely different ways when you are placed in these two situations. In the first case, you are the one and all the other entities constitute the many. And in the second, the whole world remains outside as one entity, while you are divided within yourself into so many fragmentary pieces. The problem is how a unity can be established within so that you can become part of that whole world with no difference between you and the rest. This problem has been dealt with in so many ways by philosophers throughout history. Zeno and Parmenides were two of the Greek philosophers who gave it great attention, and in Plato's Republic, Socrates considers the one in which many are implied. It is also taken up as a major subject in the Bhagavad Gita in chapters 9 to 11. This may look like a simple verse, but there are many aspects to be considered. All the shades of emotion that we experience, ranging from total frustration and depression to the highest forms of ecstasy, can all be placed on a scale of values. Imagine a scale with 1 to 100, representing the positive side, and -1 to -100, representing the negative. You can arrange your values of life on this scale in a graded order. All the criteria of the gradation are elements of value, artha. In one sense, artha means meaning. In another, it means wealth. These are not such different definitions. When properly considered, wealth is that which is appropriate in a situation as a meaningful entity. If a dying person is holding in her hand an award of $100 million, she probably won't even bother to sign the check. Of what use is the money to her? She might as well throw it away. A sympathetic hand to hold would be of far greater value. So the meaning or value of a thing depends on many subjective as well as objective factors. You should look at your life, see what pinches you and what gives you a sense of elation, what makes you feel happy, satisfied, content. These are the meanings for you, and the sum of your meanings constitute your life. Take into consideration the joy of possessing good health, the joy of having a good reputation, the joy of having wealth or a powerful position, the joy of having supremacy over others, the joy of having good companionship with someone who has a deep understanding, the joy of having the pleasures of the senses being gratified, and so on. All these seem to be entirely different, but who enjoys them? The enjoyer is none other than the one who calls himself I. Do you have separate criteria to measure these different forms of joy? Why do you call them all joy or happiness in the first place? How can so many different things have the same happiness for their meaning? Narayana Guru says here that in the many, plural, the many things, there is one meaning. Also, in one thing you can find many meanings. That means we have to learn how to go in both directions, from the one to the many and from the many to the one. Interchange the characters of both. This is very difficult, but Parmenides considers it to be the most satisfying discipline one can have, and the Gita agrees. Jesus said, "Those who are not against me are with me, and those who are not with me are against me." In the first statement, what does "with me" mean? Does it refer to becoming one of the close disciples who are directly serving his cause, or only someone not actively fighting him? The condition in the first case is only that the person is not opposed to him. For instance, I do not belong to any Christian church. If I say I am not against Jesus, in fact I love him, I can claim that I am with him because I do not hate him. But one of his Christian followers might turn around and say, "You are not with him. If you were, you would have been baptized. You should be working for some church. You obviously are not with him, so you are against him." This kind of paradox makes it difficult for us to establish ourselves in unity. We want to be friends with all, but there are psychological factors operating like the poles of a magnet, causing attraction and repulsion. When the attitudes of some people are repulsive to you, everything about them becomes repulsive. The sound of their voice jars in your ears. Seeing them causes you to turn away in disgust. Even their body odor sickens you. When they want to interfere in your life until it becomes a nuisance, how can you say, "Okay, I still love you. Come on and interfere all you want"? It puts you off. You cannot put sugar and salt in the same bottle. You have to keep them separate. The piano has many keys. They are not all tuned to the same pitch. When there are such diversities in the world, how do you effect unity in your own life? This is one of the primary problems we face. You can be very friendly, but the other person doesn't feel friendly at all. What do you do about it? You are trying your best to convince him you love him, but he is already convinced you hate him, and so believes you are being hypocritical, or that you have some sneaky plans to deceive or betray him. He is paranoid about you. However much you try to make yourself available to him, he is always moving away from you. What can you do? What do you do with your compass when the needle is being deflected by a nearby anomaly? Can you tie the needle to some fixed point? No, you cannot. You have to take the deflection into account and compensate for it. You have to accept the diversities of things and the reasons which make them diverse. In the United States, it is very common for men and women to come close together with great attraction. They feel so much closeness, such oneness as no one else has ever experienced before, probably in all of history. With the same force they split apart and become antagonists. They cannot see eye to eye. They go off in opposite directions. Then, after rushing away from each other, sometimes they can come back together after a few months and become great friends. They say, "Now we have found a level where we can meet. All that we thought previously was wrong. Our love was wrong. Our enmity was wrong. But our new friendship is right." These are the same people. How can there be two kinds of unity with different bases and different meanings? It all comes back to meaning. In one meaning, these people were lovers. In another, they were hating each other. And in another, they were friends. So, what is the basis for determining the true meaning? This is what Parmenides, Socrates, Vyasa, and Narayana Guru want us to examine. In the Republic, hearing is compared with sight in this way. If I sit in my room while a friend is playing the piano out in the living room, I don't have to switch on the light in order to listen. The music just goes in my ear, and straight into my mind and soul. But if someone else brings me one of their best paintings, I do have to have the light to see it. No matter how beautiful the artwork may be, I still require a third element. I have my eyes to see with and the object to be admired. Yet the painting itself cannot get inside me the way the music does. I have to have light also. And light doesn't come by itself. There has to be a bulb or candle burning, a fire blazing, or a sun shining. Light comes from some other object. So many things are involved before you can say, I see it, I appreciated it. An equation is sometimes made of the I as the sun of the soul, and the sun as the soul of the world. Without the sun, we do not see the world. Without the I, we do not see what is illuminated. Sight is the principle of unity. There is a homogeneity between the world and us, into which we read our meanings. And what is that homogeneous element for everything? For beauty and ugliness, goodness and evil, truth and untruth, kindness and unkindness, and love and hatred. Only your knowledge is common in all these. As aspects of knowledge, they are all equal. You should make yourself familiar with that knowledge of which everything is a part. When you say, I know, I am, do you have anything other than knowledge to form those different images? No. The images themselves bring about the differentiation. In a sense, they are the differentiation. And what makes the differentiation perennial? We attach a tag to them in the form of a nomenclature or title. Names and forms go together. Forms are perpetuated by the names which are given to them. Some names are even given without any form to attach to. The mind then has to make up some form as a mental image. Where is the meaning in all this? The name suggests a form, and the form suggests a name. If the experience of listening to a name and reviving a form clicks with a certain affectivity, which is more or less consciously felt, and that affectivity points towards either the positive or negative side of your scale of values, it makes meaning for you. The same thing may have different meanings for different people. That which disgusts me may delight you, and vice versa. There really is very little uniformity in it. Our understanding has a long history behind it, and there are a great many factors constituting the social setup to which each of us belongs. Our cultural values and aesthetic sense are probably very different, and all these lend their weight to our assessment of the meaning of things. Just the other day I heard two people speaking about the laser beam weapons the British are currently experimenting with. One thought it was the most unpleasant thing to hear about. Why should you speak of warfare? Can't you use your energy to speak of something wonderful? Why should we have warfare at all? Why should man kill man? The other was very excited about it. You don't have to go out on the battlefield. You sit in your room with your controls, and the computer plots the path of the enemy plane. You just press one button, and the anti-aircraft guns destroy the plane. A foolproof defense. From his side, a mathematical achievement, a great wonder produced by human ingenuity. From the other's perspective, proof of human ignorance and stupidity. Who can say who is right and who is wrong? It depends on your point of view. The three primary principles of our universe are pure existence, pure knowledge, and supreme value. Out of existence you can make millions of existential situations, and out of knowledge you can invent millions of miracles. But these only have meaning when the third factor is brought in. Only then can we decide which are good and which are bad, which are adorable and which are repulsive. If the supreme value you care for is that which unites everything, for the simple reason of what it is, that is love. This love is not the libidinal force of which Freud speaks. It is not even the first pole of love and strife, which are seen as two contending forces by Democritus. Probably the word love itself is wrong. It can be considered as that harmony which can be brought about by the synthesis of pairs of opposites, like love and strife. Opposites can fall in such a way that they strike a balance, out of which an overarching harmony emerges. Like this, music comes from the juxtaposition of different tones and pitches, which by their very differences strike harmony. The harmony itself becomes the overriding reality of the music. So this uniting of opposites is not anything foreign to you. It's virtually instinctive. You don't put the contending forces of your life side by side as some kind of logical proposition to be brought to unity. It is more of a wholeness into which you plunge, into which you give yourself. Look at our wonderful world with so many various kinds of climates, wildlife, and vegetation, and people of different cultures, histories, and languages, filled with myths and legends of all sorts. There are so many gifted writers, poets, storytellers, playwrights, actors, musicians, artists, and philosophers, all full of wisdom and absurdity. Is it possible for you to pick out of this vast ensemble one person or one philosophy or one piece of music and say it is the best and is the only truth? Of course, fanatics do that. But if you are sensible, you cannot. Yet shouldn't we have some scheme to which all this can belong? One in which the vision of every philosopher can be true from his or her own perspective, where the love of every person can be justified from where they stand, and where all experiences have their own small niche to which they belong. Certainly we should. It requires a large-heartedness and broad-mindedness, a great empathy and compassion, not just to live and let live, but to have a positive attitude of appreciation and admiration. This wonderful plurality of expression, which has come from one and the same source, the omnipresent mind or light, or the all-animating supreme principle, the moment you recognize your kinship with it, your fraternity with it, you are like the Indian devotee who sings, "Shiva is my father, Parvati is my mother, all these people are my brothers and sisters, and the three worlds are my home." You can excuse his ideogram of Shiva and Parvati and just understand the principle of the one fatherhood, the one motherhood, the one brother and sisterhood to which we all belong, treating the whole world as your home, your motherland. The free translation of the free translation of verse 73 is as follows: In one thing there can be many constituents, and many things can be encompassed by one meaning. Thus, when everything is understood by complementary equations. Nothing falls outside knowledge. This secret of all-inclusive knowledge is not known to all.